As we develop and question the world around us and notice how our particular society works, the rules, and the various spoken do's and don'ts are, we try to find common ground with the people who have come before us, our parents, our teachers, what our teachers tell us to be like, what contemporary mass media or subculture movements preach. We are all subjected to contemporary norms or frameworks of power, and they are very powerful because so many people believe in them. They practice them, preach them, and reinforce them. So many are truly under their particular spells, and it's hard to resist them ourselves. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher, Judith Butler, had been influenced by, spoke of prevailing normative frameworks which impact us all on a fundamental level. Norms that are reinforced by our loved ones, by our friends, by our teachers, our peers, on how we should live our lives, how to speak, act, walk, believe in, what we should like or do or perform. We are all subjected to this type of treatment and must deal with these. We must decide to take them on, appropriate them, but if we don't, if we deviate, we might get into some trouble. As one can see from the title of this book, trouble is the second word. Gender trouble. Yes, the book is called Gender Trouble. And gender trouble is all about re-examining the word or the category of gender and re-examining our common notions of what gender metaphysically is. Butler in particular notices that she herself and others are breaking out of the traditional notions of what gender is supposed to be, which is reinforced by normative thoughts, what the category is of woman is. Butler writes in 1990 that contemporary feminist debates about the meaning and definition of gender, of what woman is, leads to a certain sense of trouble. Butler is starting to believe this because she has seen others and herself are particularly in a sense of trouble because they are bending and experimenting within the normative frameworks, within the norms. And she realizes that trouble is inevitable, especially people in the homosexual and lesbian communities and transsexual communities. The normative frameworks which society has been subjecting its youth and its adults to for forever, Butler thinks is not particularly correct ethically. And feminist theory at that time, she writes in the preface, is also participating and reinforcing particular normative beliefs of what a woman is and should be. Butler thinks this isn't ethically correct. She writes, and this is a main reason why Gender Trouble becomes a famous text and is an important text in academia. It is actually the beginning of queer theory. In the normative framework Butler writes about, we should acknowledge that it is still very much alive. The normative framework is the heterosexual matrix in this context, where males and females are born out of their mother's wombs, and because of their sexual organs, are specifically trained to walk, talk, act, like, and perform certain rituals and activities that the ideal masculine man and the ideal feminine woman should take on to procreate. And this basically determines what types of subject we can all be, solely depending on our sexual organs. We are taught to be men or women, and if we differ from this teaching, from this ideal expectation, if we act out of place, if we want to break out and decide who we are instead of letting society dictate who we are, we will inevitably be and face trouble. We'll face social shunning. But this, I'd argue, is the purest form of freedom. Being okay with who you are, even though the majority tells you not to be as such. This is freedom. It's saying no to oppression. As you break free, or if you ever break free, you will notice that the nicest, the kindest people in the world who do not want to oppress others are sometimes blindly participating in oppression and reinforcing it because they haven't, or we haven't gained the knowledge yet to see how we're oppressing. And it's solely through education and critically thinking of what commonly is expected to be true or completely pure that exposes the inequalities and the gross oppression and ethical violence we allow to persist in the streets, in the schools, and even intimately within our closest relationships and friendships. Butler says that only thinking within the binary social constructions of what a man or what a woman should be and act like will lead a person into participating in ethical violence. Thinking the heterosexual matrix and the appropriation of the ideal man and ideal woman constructions is natural and the only way that one should live their life will lead to a very determined ideology or ontology of a way of being and living in the world, which might upset you and burden you psychologically. And it did for me and for Butler and for many others, and maybe even you, my friends. So Butler will call this normative framework of compulsory heterosexuality, the heterosexual matrix, and the gender hierarchy into question, because these things breed unnoticed and blind obedient oppression. It reinforces and perpetuates this oppression in our society, and we sometimes blindly produce it within our own lives, between our own intimate relationships. She wants to trouble this regime. She wants to trouble compulsory heterosexuality and the normative frameworks that help empower certain groups of people and oppress others. She wants to empower these people who are oppressed, and she will also write later how the gender that we may take on and try to impersonate or try to be the best woman or man that we can be is participating in the heterosexual matrix and is a persistent performance that we try to pass off as real, as good, as the natural. And it just means that we're buying into the heterosexual matrix. It's the only thing that we've been taught. It's pretty much the only thing that we know how to act and be like. We buy into the normative framework of power. It's okay if this frightens you or twists your notion of what is real and what is good. Have you ever heard the term wake up? Well, that's what it feels like. It produces this incredible emotion, confusion, and jolts us into rethinking what common sense is. It evolves our consciousness. It's okay not to know everything. It's better to be uncertain. This is Helen. Please leave your comments. I love when you guys share your ideas with me. Let's start a dialogue. Let's start something. If you have any really major questions that I could answer in a video log, let me know so I can make one for you. Have a good day. Please support nudeanswers.com. Go to nudeanswers.com/support and leave a couple bucks. I am desperate for some financial support. This is Helen, and if you have any questions, please share your ideas because I love to answer them or start a dialogue with you. And if you have any major questions that I could answer in a video log, I'd love to do that as well. So leave your comments, leave your questions, and I will get back to you. Alright, have a great day. Thank you so much. Ow! I'm out.